Hey, everybody, welcome back to the 95th episode of Taps and Patience, the podcast that sometimes releases episodes in order. I'm AJ with Audacity Micro here with Harrison of Precision Ingenuity. Hi, Harrison, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Speaking of releasing things out of order, have you looked on like Spotify or any of the other podcasts? Does it like reorder them based on the episode number or based on release?
That's a good question. I think the answer is no, it doesn't. For those of you that have been very confused by our release schedule, there were a couple things that happened. The big one being that Zencaster just kind of gave up and died when me and Prescott and Harrison were recording, and the audio tracks were all jumbled, and it took me forever to get those edited. Not only were they jumbled, but for some reason it decided that Prescott needed to talk faster. And so his recording was out of sync with mine and Harrison's. Harrison and I, the recording was fine, but Prescott was like, I don't know, 5% faster for some reason. And I had to go and cut his up and like stick his audio where it belonged, where like Harrison and I were talking. And the video was just completely off. I didn't even try to get the video lined up. I think what happened is we somehow Zencaster recorded us at different sample rates, and that does weird things. So,
was it because of his internet connection by chance?
Yeah, when we have guests with bad internet connections, it screws everything up. So,
gotcha.
Not that this was not Prescott's fault. This was Zencaster's fault. I think in the future we need a better mechanism for recording with guests, but
yeah,
we got that published, and then I just. I didn't publish it. I just uploaded the Patreon, the IMTS episode. And that is now live for Patreons, or in a couple days here, it'll be live for everybody else.
Yep.
But people were very confused when I didn't upload an episode 82.
Yeah, I can imagine. So,
but we're here now.
Oh, this is kind of like, it feels like it's been forever since we've talked, even though it's just been from IMTS. And we have like all of IMTS to go over. Well, not all of it because we did some while we were there, but some of that, and then just craziness since we've gotten back.
Yep. I kind of took some craziness onto myself as well. I took a few jobs at IMTS, like on the Xometry job board. I took a couple jobs. And then when I got back, there were a couple more jobs that were too good to pass up. And I've probably overbooked myself by about 10%, maybe 20%, which is like just enough overbooking where it's still doable if you work really late.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I'm at. You, however, sound like you've had some interesting times.
Yeah. I feel like, what is it? The Great Gatsby. It was the best of times and it was the worst of times. I think that's what that's from. Yeah.
Yes.
That is what's going on in my world right now. So
it's
basically,
better than the opening to Seven Eves.
Huh?
Never mind. The deep cut.
Oh, okay.
One person got that and think it's funny. Moving on.
It's we have the most amount of work, and we've officially crossed the point where we have enough work coming in to meet our goal for this year, our minimum goal for this year. So, provided we get all the work done and out the door, this year is basically covered, which is awesome.
Woohoo.
Because back a month or two before IMTS, we were behind by like 10 or 15 or maybe even 20% at its peak. We were way behind. And so it's been really good that all of this is kind of playing catch up right now. The good and the bad with that is, the good is, one, money and business growth, awesome things. Two, cash flow sucks, horrible. We have been really suffering on the cash flow side, and we've had a lot of really big bills that have come due here recently. And last week was extremely stressful, but we had some money finally coming in, and we were able to just make last week just barely work. And then we got a phone call today. So we had one of our customers that had a large order that they were behind on, and that's what made last week really stressful. And they ended up getting the money in last week, and just in time for us to make payments on things. And then we got a phone call from them this morning that basically said, "Hey, the money's back in our account. Something happened," or something along those lines. I don't know the exact details because they called Weston and he just kind of told me. And their their direct deposit that they did got rescinded back to them somehow. And
That
so
sucks. Though kudos to them for calling you. That's like they're at least paying attention and trying.
yeah. And so that's what makes me think that they're not because they were behind on these payments by like 2 or 3 weeks. And so like it could be thought that they did this maliciously, but the fact that they called and were like, "Hey, there's a problem on our end. Are you seeing the same thing?" And the fact that Weston didn't see the issue pop up on our end when they called in the morning, but by afternoon it showed up in our system as a retraction. Um, and so yeah, we're still figuring out that issue, and that's really quite stressful.
I
Um,
bet.
and so and then um, we did some work we got a parts catcher for
Oh,
our
cool.
for our um, lathe,
Hoslave. Yeah.
our Haas lathe. Yeah, sorry. And it turns out that we thought that was a net 30, and that was also payable upon completion.
Hmm.
So that's going to screw things up a little bit. And then, on top of all of that, we had a great thing last week where the Kennametal rep came into our shop, and we were using their Harvey 4 end mill on a job, and it's potentially going to be repeat work of a decent amount of work per year. And so we're trying to build good systems and procedures, and we were using their 3/4 inch end mill that had a 2.5 inch length of cut or 2.25 inch length of cut. Anyways, um, we only have ER collet holders right now. Our goal is to go from ER to RegoFix once we have the cash. And I
Mm-hmm.
didn't really want to spend money on halfway steps. I wanted to go once I'm up to RegoFix. I just want to start switching everything over to that. And I don't want to spend money on things that I'm going to end up not using probably as much. But the
Yeah.
Kennametal rep was like, "Hey, um, I really want you to get the most out of this tool. You guys have been buying a whole lot of stuff from us here recently. Um, Let me get you a hydraulic holder to test out so you can see the difference that the holders make." I was like, "Okay, um, that sounds like a good deal." And so they ordered one, and it showed up on Friday. Well, actually, I think it showed up on Thursday, but we ended up using it on Friday. And so we got new feeds and speeds for the tool, and the put the tool in the holder, loaded it up, and took a cut. And the tool made it about 1 inch into the part, and then it ripped the part out of the vise and
Man.
threw it in the machine. And I was just like, and I was worried about that because the old feeds and speeds I was using, what took about 5 minutes to do the roughing operation, and the new feeds and speeds took about a minute and a half.
Okay. So much
And
higher MRR.
so yeah, the MRR was insane. Um, and the spindle load before the change was about 40% to 60%, depending on where it was in the cut. And I have no idea what the spindle load would have been after because it ripped it out.
Because the vice load was over 100.
Yeah, and I knew I knew work holding was going to be the weak point after the hydraulic
Mm-hmm.
holder fix, and so I increased my torque that I was clamping my vices significantly. Um, Doubled or tripled it just to make sure that it wouldn't rip out, but it did. And it ripped it out. And I looked at the tool. The tool was fine. No chips, no dings, no nothing. I was like, okay, whatever. I'll remachine that part once I dig it out of the tray. But I had two parts in the vices. I had one part, and then I had another part. And the other part was already halfway machined in
On the
vice two.
same. Did
Vice
you
two.
have two parts clamped side by side in the same vice or two separate vices?
Two separate vices.
Okay.
Two separate vices. And and because the part was over 6 inches long, so it was
Mm-hmm.
poking out either side of the vise on both vices by like an eighth inch. It was like a 6.25 inches long part. Anyways, um, so I already had a part that was partially finished, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna like slow these feeds and speeds way down. That's way too aggressive. And so I like cut them in half, kind of, and then I ran that part, and it just seemed louder. And I was trying to figure out what was going on, and it got into a certain RPM range, and you could hear the spindle just screaming. And I was like, "Oh no! Oh no! 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 No!
Yep.
No! No! No!" And so I stopped the program, uh, moved the spindle and everything up out of the way, and started cycling through some RPM ranges, and it started screaming at me. Um, and so I called the Doosan rep or the DN rep, and I was like, "Hey, this happened. Help!" And so they basically said, "Hey, don't run anything anymore. We'll get a tech out there on Monday, and we'll take a look at it." And so the tech showed up this morning around 9 o'clock, and my salesman came with him. And so they both showed up. They were looking at it, and what the salesman said, or what the tech said, is that it appears, based on what he can diagnose, that there are flats on the bottom of the bearings, for the bearings on the bottom of the spindle. Like something happened when it hit, and it flattened out the balls,
Interesting.
is what he's suspecting happened. Um, Both the Doosan tech and the salesman were both blown away that this had happened, because I showed them the tool, I showed them the work holding, I showed them my speeds and feeds. Um, I went through everything. I was not trying to leave anything out in the diagnosis of the series of events that led to this. And based off what they saw and have seen, the tech was saying, I've seen machines like this that had crashes so bad that it actually moves the machine, like the machine actually moves. Um, and he said that those spindles have been fine. So they've basically told me, and I couldn't get a straight answer out of them. They basically said, we'll take care of you. And so I don't know if this means it's going to be covered under warranty, or if we're going to get a
Better
reduced
be.
price. And so, because here's the problem with it
This should
is
not have broken the spindle. This should be a warranty repair.
it should be, but anytime, like, I would agree, this should be a warranty, but there's also the you ripped out a part out of a vise, and like, is it the Kennemental rep's fault for telling us to go as hard as it did? Is it my fault for not taking those and considering the work holding? Even though he was in the shop floor and looked at the part with me, he just passed on feeds and speeds from what his salesman or what his techs told him. So, is it Doosan's fault for having a spindle that was like a glass cannon and broke much easier than I thought it would be? I don't know. And so, because I can't comfortably say that it should be any one of those persons' fault, I would understand if they didn't cover it fully under warranty. But at the same point, I would want something for it, because I don't feel like it's necessarily all on us for that issue. Because like I feel like I went through all of the steps to try to make it as safe as possible. The only thing I could have done differently, looking back, was not go straight to the feeds and speeds that rep told me. And when I went to do it, lower my feed rate, um, which I didn't do, and had it enter the material and then slowly crank it back up.
I I still say throwing a part should not do in a spindle.
Yeah.
Like
So
crashing, sure, then maybe you get to pay all or most of it, but throwing a part should not, like it's not an office mill. And my office mill has thrown, well, I guess my spindle's in pretty bad shape. Maybe I shouldn't say that. Fine. My Tormach has thrown parts, and it never did in the spindle.
yeah, and
But like this is a much bigger, much more expensive machine designed for much more serious cutting. If
yeah,
you can broach in the thing, you can throw a part.
yeah. So there's a lot of different things in this that are just kind of suspicious. He was kind of like the salesman's like he's like I've never seen anyone have a spindle get damaged that fast from anyone that we've ever sold a machine to. So there's there's definitely some weird things going on, and I'm really hoping that at the end of the day it's all covered under warranty and I can figure out what it is. I think they're going to go back on their end and figure out if they can get it under warranty, but I don't know at this point. But they did say that I'm okay to keep running it the way it is for the time being, and then they'll because we're really busy. I got a bunch of rush order stuff all due this week, which was the other stressful side of the equation. Was I took rush work on Wednesday and Thursday that are supposed to be
Pause
done
for a
this
second
week.
before we move on to that.
Okay.
So I want to go back to the Doosan. Right now, knowing what you know, would you like if you were back before placing the purchase order or you were looking at your next machine, would you buy a Haas or a Doosan based on your experiences with Doosan?
I would say if you went to the next tier up, I think the Doosan makes a lot more sense. I would say comparing the SVM to the VF series, I have not seen a substantial increase in performance in the ways I was expecting.
What
And
about like the sales and purchasing and delivery process?
I would say those have sucked compared to Haas. I would say the friction and the understanding on the Doosan side versus the Haas side, it was much easier on the Haas side, um, and it was a lot smoother overall. A lot of that comes, some of that is inexperience on my part on ordering machines other than a Haas, and some of that is Haas's um, upfront pricing and being able to go online and build that stuff out and not relying so much on a salesperson. And so um, I am still really glad we did this, but it is also been a frustrating learning curve that I felt like we wouldn't have to go through. So,
I having watched from a like outside perspective, I've been nothing but angry at Doosan. Like from over here, not the person receiving the machine, I have been like just kind of disappointed with the stuff that they keep doing.
so I will say that they have they have done the best they could given the circumstances. I won't say any of the decisions that they have made have been scummy. I would say that I understand it as a business person. That like I get it, but at the same time, yeah, there could definitely be perceived as some scumminess, or not scumminess, but
I don't think it's what's the quote? Significantly advanced incompetence is indistinguishable from malice.
mm-hmm.
But no, I don't think anything like I don't think they have done anything intentionally below board or
Yeah,
I think there is just some incompetence probably with your sales guy mostly
yeah,
that has been the problem. Like these are like when you insist on having a model where all of the sales material and all the pricing is buried behind a salesperson. If the salesperson's not really good, then it's going to be a bad thing. Haas doesn't have to have good salespeople because they give the consumer all the information. But
yeah,
if you are a company and you like you're not willing to share information with your customers, then your salesperson needs to be like beyond reproach to make sure that they are getting the customer what they want. And if that salesperson fails, then that like it's a failure of that business. That is a key process of that business. And it's kind of like making bad parts. Like,
mm-hmm.
I could have all my ducks in a row, but if I make bad parts, like then I'm not a very good machine shop. Well, if the machine making company is bad at delivering the right machine to the right person, then they're not a good company.
Yeah. So
There goes our Doosan sponsorships.
I will say we are more than likely going to buy another Doosan.
Really? After all
Mm-hmm.
this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Why?
Um, so we're getting into a lot of lathe parts, and we're heavily considering selling our ST15 and getting a Doosan lathe. And if like a dual spindle Y-axis lathe, I don't know when or if that's going to happen, but that's a decision I regret on the Haas side. Um, I definitely think the Doosan lathes are leagues above the Haas lathes in terms of quality and user features.
Why why not something like a Nakamura or like some other, I don't know enough about higher end lathes to give you examples, but yes, I've heard Doosan makes good lathes, but there's also other companies that make even better lathes.
Yeah. And I guess I would be more open to looking at other brands. That's honestly the one thing I didn't look that closely at IMTS for that I kind of regret. Is looking a little closer at that kind of stuff. Um, but price wise, I don't think I could afford a Nakamura. But I know they're definitely better than the Doosans in terms of like build and quality and part production. But
I mean, I can very confidently say here, I have no clue.
yeah,
But I would look at other options as well.
yeah, it's not going to be a Haas, and
That's fair.
we need a dual spindle Y-axis lathe. Um, we looked at the Doosan. That was the only dual spindle Y-axis lathe we really gave a good look over. Was the one the Lynx 2600 SY, I think is the one we were looking at. And it's a dual spindle, Y-axis, half indexing, live tools, conveyor that comes out the side. Because that's the one thing that I'm a little frustrated with is we got the parts catcher for the Haas installed, and it's just a dumb box with a ramp, and it just fills full of chips.
That
And
is not too surprising.
yeah, it's nice to have. I'm glad we got it, but I'm also frustrated with it just because it's
A
doesn't treat
box.
your parts very well. It's the most basic. It's as someone that was like looking it over said it is the definition of the KISS principle. It is extremely simple.
Yeah,
Uh,
basically a fryer basket on a pneumatic cylinder.
yeah. Well, I mean,
Could you do like
it's
a
just. Go ahead.
could you do like a 3D printed insert in there or something to help cushion your parts a little bit?
We bought some UHMW sticky back strips
Okay.
to line it, and the sticky back lasted about a day, and then it came off.
That that checks out.
And so we bought some. We got some glue, some like weather stripping glue or something, and we glued them in, and they've been holding up ever since then.
Okay.
And that's helped where they're not getting marred up as bad as they were. But definitely not a fan of that box through door thing. But anyways, um, so yeah, like I said, it's been the best of times and the worst of times. And Weston was saying, like we were talking about, if we did get a new lathe, what that would be. And Weston's like, if we get a new lathe, then our VF3 will be the oldest machine in the shop, which is less than a year old. So, which is it just blows my mind. Um, and then the other thing I did, I don't know if I talked about, I don't think I did because this was after IMTS. I I made an Excel chart and I calculated the average hours that each machine has worked since per week since we've owned it.
Mm-hmm.
And our lathe since we've purchased it has worked an average of 3 hours a week.
Really?
Yeah.
Hmm.
And then you hear that and you go, why the frick are you looking at getting a lathe?
Well, no, I kind of that makes sense to me. Like if I had a better mill, I would take more production work, which would mean that it would run more.
Yeah.
Like
And
so, yeah, that makes sense to me. If you had a more capable lathe, you would make more parts with it.
yeah, and the reason we're looking at a dual spindle Y-axis lathe is because one of our customers we got an order for 4,000 pieces on our lathe, and it's internal threads, external threads on either side, and it's got flats on it, and it's going to be a
Okay.
reoccurring part every year, or order every year, or it might be every 8 months or 12 months. I'm not sure, but it's going to be, approximately once a year order. And they've got two other parts that they're looking at sending us. One of them would be a 10,000 piece order per year, and then the other one would be, I think, another 4,000 ish order per year. And so you're getting close to 20,000 parts per year, and they're parts that have um, milling on them. And
Yeah.
so I could bar feed them for op one, manually load them for op two, and then move them over to a mill and do op three. Or it seems how me and Weston have a new goal of how many parts can we produce in this shop with just two of us.
Yep.
Um, I could switch that out and not even have a bar feeder, but I could just put a 3 or 4 foot bar and have it run for 2 or 3 hours at a time unattended and get fully finished parts. And I think the time savings of us not having to be in front of that machine and basically having the cheapest form of automation where we just get out, put in bar, get finished part, woohoo, would be
Yep.
awesome. So, and it
Yeah.
would
I mean,
probably
that makes
open up the
sense to me.
doors. It'd probably open up the doors for a lot more lathe work. Because I've had several customers that have been like, hey, do you have a dual spindle Y axis lathe? And I'm like, no. And they're like, okay. Well, we'll go find someone else. It's like,
Yeah.
so.
That's fair.
But anyways, it was just kind of funny that it's only run for about 3 hours a week. And part of the reason that is because the customer we were getting the majority of the work for that machine um basically went dark this whole year.
Hmm.
And I talked to them a week ago, right after I got back from IMTS, just being like, hey, are you guys alive? And they told me that they're finally producing 10 more machines.
Okay.
And so I should see a order packet come through first week in October. And so engineering has it right now, and they're finalizing the design. And once it gets released, I should see a decent sized order of parts. Um, and to put things in perspective, they would release an engineering packet of machines with parts during normal times about once every 3 to 3 months, 3 to 4 months, and this will be the first time this year. So
It's election years.
yeah,
They're weird for manufacturing.
it's been bad for them. It's been slow, and but they've been weathering it fine. I mean, they're a massive corporation, and they have multiple manufacturing facilities in the U.S. and overseas. So I'm sure that they plan for this kind of stuff and know it's going to happen.
Yep.
I feel like I've been talking a lot. What's going on in your world?
So right now I have just a ton of work on my plate. This this month, September, is like I'm already at my goal, and it's like the 23rd.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm on track for it to be about my goal plus another 50%, which will be my biggest month of all time. Going way well,
Woo-hoo.
I guess excluding the months with Design the Everything where a Kickstarter came in, but those don't really count. Um, So, and actually, if you include the paycheck coming from the next gen videos that I did,
Mm-hmm.
that adds another like 25% on. So this has been a good month so far, and it it'll be a good month. Um,
So,
I
just a quick question thinking about that. With this being a bigger month and you taking a consistent paycheck rather than a percentage paycheck like me and Weston do, does that mean that if you were to get slow, that's going to keep that account funded more, or are you only moving enough into that account to cover your paychecks coming out?
um so I had a couple slow months over the summer, and I just took a little bit less money in those months. This will build up some more of a surplus in my uh, owner's compensation
Mm-hmm.
fund, but that'll just stay there. And if I have another slow month or whatever, then that balance will just dip a little bit. If I get busier again, it'll go up. If it
Gotcha.
keeps going up consistently, I'll just pay myself more, and that'll be nice.
Good. I was just
But
curious with how that worked. If you just would like, if are you like once every 3 months, are you looking at the percentages going into the buckets or?
I look at it way too much, and I tweak it too often. Which actually got me into trouble because the last couple months, the work I have been taking has been very material efficient, and I've ordered almost no materials, and I haven't ordered very much custom tooling or specialty tooling. And so my OpEx has just been growing and growing and growing. So I just lowered down my percentages way down on that. And this month, not only because I'm taking a lot more work, but also because it's been, stuff where I'm actually ordering materials. And it's been a lot of expensive materials. I've had to order a lot of Peak. My OpEx was like zero there for a while. And I missed out on a really good Xometry job. It was like a partner job to a job that I had already taken. And three of the 4 parts were the same. But the 4th part needed like $2,000 of Peak. And I just didn't have the money for it. And I don't run a credit card anymore for my operating expenses at all. And so I seriously considered breaking my no credit card rule and just buying that stuff. But it was like, this is already my best month ever. I'm already overbooked. Why push it further? So, but I was missing out on an easy couple $1,000s there.
Yeah, but does that make you want to change your percentages back a little bit more?
Yeah, I'm just going to dial them back a little bit more.
Gotcha. Because it
Bump
is
up that
supposed to be an
OpEx a little bit.
average.
Yeah.
So hopefully that'll help with your, level things out a little bit. And that's a problem that we have. And I think it's just because we've just had no work in the beginning of the year and it's all hitting now. There's not really anything I can do with percentages to catch that efficiently.
It is nice knowing, like, it is nice seeing this month and it doing so well. Cause like, I'm not working longer hours than I've worked in the last couple months, except maybe this week. This week I totally am. But it is just, I feel like the last couple months, which remember, this business for me now is almost just a year old, Audacity Micro versus being Design the Everything, where I'm coming up on a year. But like the first couple months, it was me kind of getting the swing of things and figuring things out and, getting better at machining and, learning how to do inspections right and yada, yada, yada. And then over the summer, I feel like I just constantly had something that was like interfering with my month. Like there would be a family trip and I was gone for a week, or I remember at one point I got sick, and like there was just thing after thing after thing in this month, in those months. But this month has just been smooth, and it's like, oh, if there's not all of these other distractions and other things going on, like look, I can actually make a decent amount of money, pretty without killing myself. So
Now, are you able to keep up? Is your machine able to keep up, or is there any other bottlenecks on the actual part making side?
The parts I'm doing right now are all super glue method, and basically my problem I'm running into is glue dry time. That's the biggest thing slowing me down right now. That could be pretty easily cured with something like an Aroa pallet system, for example.
I was just thinking that.
And that's going to be soon here in my near future. I need to reach back out to Breaking Taps to arrange things, and I need to wait for a couple more checks to come in after I just spent all my money on materials. But that money will come back at, I think I'm averaging 80% profit on these, so
Yep.
It'll come back. It takes some time. And then I also found a system that I found at IMTS. Let me phrase that. I figured out where to buy a system I found at IMTS, which is it's a little dual Aroa pallet system that has a Aroa pallet holder on the top and then one mounted at 90 degrees on the side. And so you can kind of use that as a pseudo fifth axis where you can access the top and then a row of pallets index at 90 degrees. So you can hit 4 sides on the side. And it fits neatly in my office mill, and it'll look tiny on any other machine that I need to follow up with about coming here soon. So getting like right now, that is one of my big bottlenecks, and getting that in here will help a lot.
Yeah. One thing that I have found is in this industry, efficiencies pay dividends so
Yes.
much. And I'm sure it's true in all businesses, but especially uh, low people businesses where it's just like one or two people, anything you can do to make processes take less time, um, pay back so much in the long run.
And it helps kind of towards my goal of automation. Like just having any sort of 0 point will be a big
Mm-hmm.
help there. I don't think any of the row stuff I'm buying right now is going to have like the pneumatic bases,
Mm-hmm.
except maybe one for the Tormach. I might just go pneumatic on that one because it's not that much more expensive. But if I have all this pneumatic stuff already, or excuse me, all this Aroa stuff already, in my shop, switching out for a pneumatic base and adding a robot's not going to be nearly the same investment as it would have been if I had to buy 100 vices at the same time as well.
Yep. Yep. There, coming back from IMTS, there's so many things that I want to buy like now.
Yep.
Oh my goodness.
I get that. If I have more months
But
like this, I'll end up with a lot more shiny toys.
yeah, yeah. And that's the thing. You keep running, you keep growing, and I feel like things keep changing faster and faster and faster. And the biggest fear that I have is if it all just starts slowing down, because I'm basically running at the speed that I can get work in the door and get it out the door at this point. And right now, out the door is becoming the bottleneck.
Yeah.
So it's a good problem to have, but keeps us busy.
Good for your business, not good for your stress.
Yes. Especially if things go bad, like, I don't know, bad spindle.
Yeah.
I did not sleep at all over the weekend. I was so stressed out because that was the last thing on Friday.
Yeah. I don't blame you. Did you come back in on the weekend at all, or?
I did. I didn't run it, but I ran the Haas, and we ran the mill and the lathe. So that 5 axis, I'm going to need a dedicated 5 axis at some point because that is becoming a bottleneck at this point. It is running constantly. Um, I absolutely love it, but I need something else. I did a really cool part on it for the university I graduated from, my
Uh-huh.
local college. They have a cathedral that they're doing some remodeling work on, and they had some handrails that went up onto the stage, and they're all brass, and they're really old. And I don't know if they broke a piece or if they lost it, but they had a couple brass pieces that they needed replaced, and all the pieces were cast
Mm.
brass, and you couldn't buy them anymore, and they couldn't find them anywhere. Um, and so they took them to a machine shop and asked them, one of the local ones, and they're like, no, go to these guys. And so they showed up at our shop, and we took it
We
on.
can't do this on conversational.
And it's yeah, pretty much. And we did it, and it turned out really good, and I was just so happy with it. Although the Haas choked so hard on the 5 axis code for it, um, and
In
it
terms
just
of being able to process it fast enough.
yes. So the first time I outputted it, it was a 14-minute long program, and I was using 5 axis surfacing, like going all over the place. And it was 100 megabyte file, and it could not process all the points.
Mm.
And so I ended up having to drop the tolerances down, or not dropping. I ended up having to add in a ton of smoothing and increasing my step over like crazy, and turning it on to basically go ahead and go as fast as it could on the controller side as well. Like I don't remember if I don't think I went all the way up to a P3, but I was for sure P2. So I
Mhm.
wasn't a fine finish, I was a medium finish. And it still took it over an hour to run, and you could still see it jitter. And the funny thing is that um, I paused the code a couple of times to look in there and see how everything was doing, and then I'd restart the code, and it would move relatively fast for about a minute and a
Because
half.
it buffered.
It buffered and it caught up, and then as soon as it got all the way caught up, it just started going, slow again. Um, and so, um, I would love to know how many blocks the look ahead the Haas has. I want to say it's 100 to 200, um, and it definitely needs more because it. And I talked to Dylan after the fact, and one thing that he mentioned that I didn't do, which I still need to attempt because I want to see how big of a difference it makes, is he said not only can you increase smoothing, but if you decrease your tolerance, it'll put more points in there closer together, and when that smoothing goes, it can sometimes go a
Mm,
greater distance. And so it'll be more accurate, but it'll take those points and turn them into smoother lines, and it'll actually decrease your program
interesting.
size.
How was the CAD model generated? Did you reverse engineer it? Was it a 3D scan?
I reverse engineered it and I 3D printed it first to make sure everything worked.
Okay. So, but there wasn't any weird, funky geometry left over
Mm-mm.
from like a 3D scan or something. Okay.
Mm-mm. So I built it completely from scratch. I didn't have a way to 3D scan it. I just used calipers, and it was basically a purely cosmetic part. And so I got it as close as I could, just visually looking at it and taking measurements on key locations.
When I first saw it, I thought it was one of these. In the
Oh, is that like a shoe?
Yeah, this is from Tormach. But like you were kind of holding it in your hand at a funny angle, and I thought you had made a boot, but it wasn't.
No, no. It was a cool part. It's on our Instagram.
It looked really
Um,
good.
yeah, no, it came out really good. You can definitely tell. Basically, it started at the top and it was rotating everything around, and all of that part looks good. And then it picked up the tool and it went to the bottom and worked its way up. And then there was two little squares in the middle that it would pick up the tool and redid. And basically, anytime it picked up the tool from the part and went to a different location, the blend lines between those were very noticeable.
Interesting.
And so that's probably another area where, if as long as the tool stayed in contact, it was moving. They turned out really good. But as soon as the tool picked up, went to a new location, the areas where they would overlap after pickup and come back down did not look very good. So everything else turned out great. And I was pretty happy. I was happy with that.
Speaking of turning out great, this podcast is supported by Patreons. Those Patreons include Trey from Vestal Machining, Guy L, Eric H, Alex B, Scott from Design the Everything, Jamie from JSpec Engineering, who I got to meet and hang out with in person, Chris Zyke from Zyke Precision, EJ from Nocturnal Welding, who I also hung out with for a while, Simon V, Chris from Thoughtbomb Designs, Prescott at 1Z2Z Systems, who was just on the podcast, and I also got to meet in person. And as ever, Jake Brownson, who I just learned owns a Pocket NC Solo, and I'm very jealous, and I want to talk to you more about that.
Oh yeah, that thing was sick. Like the
So,
parts he brought to IMTS, the cubes,
yeah.
those are cool.
And I know I saw more of you guys than who I mentioned at IMTS, but
Yeah,
those are the guys I
yeah,
hung out with for a long time. But yes, I saw a lot of our Patreons at IMTS.
yeah. Did you have like an inferiority complex looking at what our Patreons were able to produce? Because I
Yes,
did.
yes, I did. It's like, why are they listening to us?
I was like, oh, my part's not so cool anymore.
Yeah.
No, we have some. You guys are absolutely phenomenal. I would like to apologize to everyone that was at IMTS. I did not hang out as much as I would have liked to have. I was a man on a mission with me and my cousin, just running around trying to learn as much as I could. And I wish I'd hung out more, but I'm glad I ran around as much as I did. I learned a ton.
Yeah, I met so many people. I met twice as many people as I thought I would, and I got to hang out with them for half as long as I would have liked. So,
Mm-hmm.
everybody, if we didn't get to hang out very long, I'm sorry. I was just constantly bouncing around.
Oh,
But I'm glad I did get to hang out with a lot of people, at least maybe not in depth, but in with.
The CNC repairman, I got to do a special shout out to him. I was trying so hard to sit down and actually have a good conversation with him. He went to school with my wife in
That's
Canada.
so funny.
And
In
so
Canada?
in Canada. And what's hilarious about that is I was watching a YouTube video at home one time, and my wife comes up behind me, and I'm watching the CNC repairman, and my wife goes, "I went to school with him." I was like, there is no way you went to school with the CNC repairman. He's a random guy on the internet. No, I went to school with him. You're full of it. Because she was like, "Who are you watching?" And all this stuff, and I was just like, "Whatever." I was like, "Do you want me to reach out and ask him?" She's like, "No, no, 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 don't do that." I was like, "Okay, well, if I ever get the chance, I'm gonna ask him." And so whenever we get there at IMTS and I see him, I go up to him like, "Hey, do you by chance know my wife?" And I tell her name, and he goes, "Yeah. How do you know her?" I'm like, "That's my wife." So turns out they went to school together, so it's kind of funny. Small world.
Is your wife Canadian?
Dual citizen.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So, yep. She was not born in Canada though. She was born in the U.S., but she has dual citizenship.
Interesting.
So, yeah, no,
Oh,
it's
and
pretty
we
funny.
now have proof that Harrison's business partner exists.
Yeah, yeah.
It took 95 episodes of the podcast for me to see him, but like he's real.
He exists. He does not. He anytime we had a social event, he'd be there for about 5 seconds to drop me off, and then he was like, "Gone, bye." I was like, "You didn't want to hang out and meet people?" He's like, "I don't know any of these guys." He's like, "You can make
It's like
friends."
it's
He's
kind of
like,
the
"Uh."
point.
He's like, "Uh." He
I
is. He's very introverted.
I have seen your wife walk by in the background of a video, so I know that she's. Well, I know there's at least a girl who hangs out at your house apparently, occasionally. I have no proof that she talks, but
She doesn't
there is
to
at least
anyone
someone
else.
who's there.
She doesn't talk to anyone else. She only yells in my ear.
Anyway,
So
Patreons. If you join our Patreon at any level, you get access to early episodes. They will be put up on the Patreon feed as a link to our YouTube or the YouTube channel where you can go watch them. You also, even if you join at the free membership level, which is no money, then you can join our weekly Q&A and ask us questions. We need more people to do that. We have one question
please,
this week. And are there more perks? Oh, if you join it over $10, you get mentioned in the podcast.
we need to do an awkward outro with the top tier.
Yeah, I need to do that. I just need to like set up a forum or something or a form and have them submit their things. Oh, we have a website now, tapsandpatience.com. It is a open editable Wikipedia style page. So if you want to make a correction to something we say, you can go do that, or something I wrote. Every episode, except the last couple, has a complete web page with a full text transcription, as well as summaries, and eventually they'll have all the links on there. I don't have the links yet.
Oh, and
Go on.
speaking of Patreons, real quick, coins. I have like 10 coins that are done that just need to be shipped out. Weston was gone the day I did them, right before IMTS, and I have them sitting on the station to get shipped out. I just need to get with Weston, give him all the addresses so he knows whose coin goes where, and then connect them, and then he can get them shipped out to everyone. So I don't know how to
Cool.
do it, otherwise I would have, because he does all that.
In terms of Patrons, we have said for a long time that the point of our Patreon was to get Harrison and I to IMTS and to make that trip easier. We are done now. If you guys want to be done, that's cool with me. Any future Patreon money is going to go to keeping the website up and running. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to do an upgrade for Harrison's recording setup. I'm going to get him a mic arm like the one that I'm using right now, and a better webcam, which frankly, probably by the end of the month, I think we'll have more than enough money for. After that, we are both going to get nicer microphones and possibly some like actual external recording hardware to help with our audio quality. And after that, I don't have plans yet, but microphones are expensive, so that might take a couple months worth of Patreon money.
You mean my $5 Walmart camera isn't that impressive?
I mean, it's worked so far, but yeah, we'll get Harrison a extreme take makeover and up his
I
quality a
don't.
little bit first, and
I
then
kind
we'll
of like the
mine
grainy
and
look. Then I have an excuse
we
for why
we
I
can
look
do that in
bad.
post.
Question: do we have a question from the Patreon?
Yeah. Here, stall for a second, Harrison. Oh, look, I
What?
found it. Jake Brownson, as ever. What was the most surprising thing in IMTS, and what will you do differently for the next one?
The most surprising thing at IMTS.
I can start there.
Yeah, go
At
for it.
least the most, maybe not surprising, but the most enlightening, like the thing that piqued my interest the most was the machines by Jing Dao. They're ones that I had not heard of before. They're ones that I had not seen. But they're kind of like a Chinese kern, where it's a very precise machine. They're 5-axis, glass scales on all the different axes. And the coolest thing about them, or one of the cool things about them, was they were designed to be very, very closed loop on the part. So you could put your part in, it would machine your part with a little bit of stock to leave. It would probe it all, inspect it all, compensate all of its, compensate everything that it needs to compensate, and then redesign or machine it so it's perfect. And then it would inspect it again, and from that, it would spit out like a CMM report. And the machine was accurate enough that, like, normally you don't want to inspect things on the same machine that you make them on, but this
Mm-hmm.
this machine is accurate enough that I would trust it. So you could load up a pallet of parts, hit go, and get finished inspected parts the next morning. And so that is very, very interesting to me.
That is cool. I found a company that packages things like send cut send. So like if
Oh, like you
you're
found the packaging company?
yeah,
Oh, that's
so
cool. Like a
that
vacuum
was pretty.
table heat former
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. That was pretty cool. Um, the other thing that kind of and it was kind of surprising, yes and no surprising, was how close in price nice machines fully automated 5-axis were to the cheaper machines. Like the price difference
Mm.
once you got all the way decked out and everything loaded up was not as far as I was expecting. So like the 5 or 10% difference at most that I saw was well worth it to go up to the nicer machine if we just when we decide to go down that route.
Yeah, as I was looking at 5-axes, basically everything was between 150 and 200,000 for what I was
Mm-hmm.
looking at. And I got to the point where I was like, these are all the same. Like, yeah, there's a little bit of differences. Like this one has a couple extra tools, or this one has more workspace. But it was like, do you know what? Any of these would be perfectly fine for me. And they're all basically the same price. And it's like, when I'm ready to make that jump, I'm not going to just throw a dart at a board, but it's like, I don't feel like any of them will really be the wrong choice.
Yeah. The other thing that it really helped with is I could definitely look at machines and go, okay, these parts would be great on this machine. These parts would be great on that machine. These parts would be great on that machine. And I think having a good mental image of if I start getting work in this area, look at this machine really helps. So, um, the next thing I would say is, um, what was another thing that was pretty surprising? Oh, the air turbine tools booth.
Oh,
When I
yeah.
went there, um, I always assumed air powered tools would be significantly weaker than like a through coolant tool. And they had their little demo where you could take an air turbine tool and you could they had like a little grinding wheel and you could push down on it and see how much force it took to stall it. And they had some impressive technology because like you could just wail on it and it took a lot to get them to slow down. It was impressive. I was extremely impressed with those tools. And we won the cornhole competition, and I got a gift certificate for some of their stuff that I'm going to try to put in our machine, just because I was so impressed. So
I made a profit on IMTS somehow
yeah, I
between Haas gift cards, and the YouTube video I made while I was there. I'm up like $500.
Yeah, yeah. I think we walked away with over $1,500 in giveaway rewards between me and
Yeah,
Weston.
I had $700 from Haas, and then the YouTube video I recorded when I was there. That's at like $300, and it's still averaging like $30 a day.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll probably max out at around, I don't know, $500 plus. So
So what was okay? What was the most surprising thing, and what was the other question he had in there? There was kind of a two-parter.
what will you do differently for the next one?
I want to hang out with more people now that I kind of have a good idea of what it's actually like. Um, I'd like to actually get to know the community a little bit better. I definitely still feel kind of like a third wheel in the overarching Instagram community.
Hmm.
Like I'm still pretty new to it, if that makes sense.
I want to do the opposite. So I think what I would do differently, I would do our meetup at Tuesday because I think more people could show up. I would still come on Monday, but I wouldn't tell anybody. And then I would run around to all the booths that I wanted to see on Monday, and then on Tuesday I would start being social.
Yeah.
Cuz I saw like maybe a third of the show cuz I hung
Mm-hmm.
out with people like the whole time.
Yeah.
Which was fun. Like I had a lot of fun hanging out with Jamie and EJ, two of our Patreons. Like they were a blast, and I wish I had more time to hang out with them. But it's sometimes like, this is a business trip and I need to go see machines and stuff.
Yep.
um I think I made it through the entire machine hall, and I wandered some in the other ones. Oh, I made it through the entire tooling and work holding halls too, but
Yeah.
like I wanted to see all the automation stuff, and I basically just walked to lights out, and that was about it in the automation hall.
I will say, at least from Weston, from what we've talked about thus far, it was extremely beneficial for like the brother side of things because he was very anti brother, and
Uh-huh.
then we like spoke to brother for about 2 hours on Monday after the meetup, and he did a 180 on the Speedios.
Good. I think that's the right
He's
like it's not the only machine you need, but you need one.
yeah, yeah, and like they make some cool machines, and it was cool to sit down and talk to some of the tech guys. One of the things I didn't realize that brother will do that's a little bit different than any other um machine tool builder that I've talked to is they will go in and add features to the controller for you if it's something that you so desire to have. And
And
so
pay
like
for it.
we huh
And pay for it.
maybe the way they might charge for it. I didn't honestly get into cost for any of that stuff, but like the stuff that they said, oh yeah, if you have this issue, we'll go in there and we'll do this, or we can do this, and like because I would talk about pros and cons of different machines, of features that I liked, and I was like, does brother have this feature? Does brother have that feature? And sometimes they'd be like, yes, it does, or other times it'd be like, no, but I've we can go in and change things around and make it to where it can do that or do this, and it was just like, okay, this is actually really cool. Like usually it's a hard yes or a hard no, and they're not really going to go in and make changes to things on the fly to fit your specific needs. Like
Yeah.
I haven't really seen that from any other manufacturers. So
Yeah. The next best thing you get is like Tormach, and they're like, well, we don't do it, but it's open source, so have fun.
yeah, so that was pretty cool. I really like those brothers though. Just talking to them, like I'd love to have their 5-axis, and then their turnstile rotary table machines.
The R series.
Um, yeah, the R series. Those things are pretty sweet too. And one thing I didn't know was that you can actually put two 5-axis trunnion tables on those swivels, and you can have a turntable 5-axis.
Sounds expensive.
It is. They said it's really expensive, and they said they've had like a couple people that have done it. But they said if you are wanting like insane 5-axis production and you have the right parts for it, they said it nothing beats it for a 5-axis productivity standpoint.
Except 2 5-axis machines.
Yeah, except maybe 2 5-axis machines, but it's pretty wild. Like footprint wise, it'd be hard to beat, I'm sure, productivity wise. But no, it was super cool. What else would I do differently? I have a much better idea of what's there and what I would need to what I would want to look at going forward. Um, One thing that didn't see is I did find Grobe in the tooling center, but I didn't really talk to them. Um, they were a little bit bigger than I thought they would be, which was kind of
The
surprising.
machine or the company?
The machine,
Okay.
like the footprint that it took. Even their small machine, huh?
Isn't that like what Grobe does? Big machines?
Yeah, they make machines.
Big machines.
Yeah, but they also
specifically large ones.
Well, they have their G150 that I was looking at, and I was just curious what that would be. And then the other one was I didn't see DMG Mori there at all. Did they have a separate thing going on?
Were they in methods? I never actually went through the method stuff.
I went through methods and I saw the Fanic machine that had the $800,000 Fanic machine YouTube video guy did. The guy in California, I can't remember his name. Cornell Manufacturing or Connor Manufacturing, something like. Oh, it's a good video. He's got a Fanic robo drill. In fact, I think. Oh, why am I drawing a blank on these guys? They were one of our first guests. They started out with a Sile, and then they got two. Servin, I think's got a Methods machine with the same 5-axis automation on it, where it can hold like 80 pallets or 60 pallets, and then it's got a robot arm that loads them, and then it can also extend the tool capacity, and you can have like so it can not only can
those robos need.
Not only can it change out the pallets, but it can also change out tools in the machine.
That's
and
cool.
So it's a really slick system and really compact. It's really cool. I like that system a lot, actually. Would be highly interested into it. Highly interested in it. Or no, it wasn't. It wasn't. Sorry, it wasn't him that got it. No, it was the guys that they're in Florida and they do the boat handle stuff. I talked to them about anodizing and I wanted to have them on as guests, but we never have. Sorry.
Set it up and make sure their internet connection's good.
Yeah, I need to do that. I need to reach out to them. It's probably been a year since I've talked, or longer since I've reached out to them.
We should reach out to Serven again. They've probably like quadrupled in size at this point, if not more.
Yeah. So it wasn't Serven. Serven got the cobot feeding a robo drill. No, it was I'll have to look them up later. I don't want to do it right now, but they do I think they were doing like Sea-Doo handles and gas caps, and they brought their anodizing in-house. That's what got me interested in them, because I wanted to bring anodizing in-house for a while. I still would like to do it, but I don't have the space and I don't want to mess with it. I got other things that are, I got other things that are worth more right now. Yes. Oh,
but I hit the wrong button. Sorry, I raised my hand instead of muting.
But I got to see their machine in their booth, and it was super cool at Methods. Yeah. What would you do differently?
I already said mine.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, you did.
At very least, IMTS meetup Tuesday in the Tormach booth, IMTS 2026. Yeah. We'll just put that out there now.
Yeah. And it was awesome for Tormach to let us come and bomb their booth for a little bit.
Yep. And they provided drinks, which I'm sure was not cheap.
No.
Because they were paying IMTS prices. So thank you, Tormach. We very much appreciate you. Your machine was cool.
That machine was awesome. Like, seeing it in person, I'm honestly upset that machine did not exist when we started our company.
It is not an 1100, but bigger. It is it's like it came from a different company. Like this is what
Yeah.
Tormach should have been all along.
Yeah. No, like if we had that machine, we'd probably still have it, and I'd still be using it today
Yes.
because it is a huge step up compared to what the other one was. So I was impressed with what I saw, especially that chip conveyor on the back. Like there's just so many little extra add-ons that machine has that were like fixed all the gripes that I ever had about the first one.
Yep. And their integration with the robot.
Yeah, which I need to watch your video on that because I mean I did see the live demo, but I didn't spend too much time in that booth just because I was running around like a madman. And
Oh boy, are there details in that video.
because like
It's a long video.
I would honestly actually be interested in the Tormach machine. Like if I ever get a wild hair and wanted to come up with my own automated solution for one of these, I'd actually give that robot a good look.
Yes. I think the robot makes like it with the like if you're feeding a Tormach, it's like a really, really nice package and a nice solution. If you're not specifically feeding a path pilot driven machine, it's just a cheap industrial robot.
Yeah.
Um, the integration with the path pilot controller is what makes it really slick.
What's the I'm gonna look it up.
The
But
ZA6.
do you remember what its capacity was?
Nope, I do not. But
All
because
right.
it's not a cobot, it's more than like it punches outside of its weight class because of that, at least compared to like a cobot. It might be 6 kilograms. I'm not sure.
Yeah, because I was as I'm trying to get into automation, figuring out that kind of stuff. Um, 6 kilograms. Yeah.
Yeah,
So.
after like I just edited that long video where we were at Tormach and watching that thing run again. It's like, oh man, I would love this setup in my shop to the point where I'm seriously considering about buying one of the arms. I don't have the right kind of work for it right now, but even if it like I have this dream and it's really like it wouldn't be that hard to accomplish at this point. But at least all of the pieces are there. There'd be a lot of work in between, but the pieces exist at this point at a relatively low cost, which is opening up Fusion and having my own little plugin inside Fusion,
Mm-hmm.
and where I can like program my part, I can post my part, and then I can open this plugin, and that plugin will be a palette scheduling system for the robot.
Mm-hmm.
And like I just open up my plugin, I say, okay, run this program next, and it just adds it to the bottom of my list. And the robot arm just goes over and it grabs the right vice and puts it in the machine and runs it without any human interaction. Like I just
Mm-hmm.
want to be able to run all of my manufacturing directly from Fusion without, more interaction than loading the part. And all of the like it would take work to integrate it all. But like right now, you can write a plugin with Fusion, no problem. You can have ChatGPT do it for you. The robot runs on Python, and guess what? You can have ChatGPT write that too.
Mm-hmm.
Picking up a pallet's not that difficult on a robot. Like 0 point systems to accept that pallet, those exist.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well, one thing I forgot to look at while I was there, I was just thinking about this, was machines to suck up coolant.
oh, like the Freddy.
Mm-hmm. And
Um, Tell us why you're wanting this, Harrison.
I flooded the shop right before IMTS. So it was a crazy day on Friday, and Weston wasn't gone. I was trying to do the Patreon coins. I was trying to keep 3 machines running. Um, and they were running low on coolant, and so I was filling up different machines, running around doing that. And then I had a big dinner with the family that night, and so when it came time to close down, I just ran around shutting everything off. And apparently, the one thing I forgot to shut off was the coolant refill.
Yep.
And so I was kind of planning on IMTS, and I just had stuff running through my head. And I get to church on Saturday, and I sit down in the pew, and I just bolt up, just basically stand up in the middle of the church and look at my wife and just grab her and run for the door.
At least
And
you realized it. Better late
yeah.
than never.
And so we are running there and I am flying. My wife has her hands dug into the seat because she's thinking I'm about to kill her in the car. And we're flying there and we get there and I'm just like, because like the whole time I'm driving, I'm like, I'm replaying in my head, did I shut that valve off? Did I shut that valve off? Did I shut that valve off? And we pull up and I'm looking at the front door and I'm like, okay, water's not coming out the front door, so
Yet.
maybe. And then I pull up around to the side of the building and I just see water flowing underneath the
Oh
garage door.
no.
And it was just like, oh fuck. And so we go inside and I text my dad, or I call my dad. He doesn't answer because he's in church. And then I text him. I said, basically, call me immediately. And so um, after
Hail.
he sees that, he's like, "What's going on? Are you okay?" And I was like, "I need help. There's 4 inches of water in the shop floor." Weston was gone on a family trip.
4 inches?
4 inches in some places.
How watertight is your shop?
Apparently decently. We had a floor drain that was not draining. Otherwise, it would have been a lot better. Um, and so, but we only have a septic system.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it filled up the septic tank and
Mm,
then just started filling up the whole shop.
man.
And so yeah, in some locations it was over 4 inches deep, but the majority of, and that's just because the building sloped. And so like the low side of the building had like 2 to 4 inches of water depending on location. And then the other side of the shop was like completely dry. And that's the side where the garage door was.
Of
So
course.
yeah, the water was basically sloped towards the drain, and once the drain filled up, like around the drain, there was probably areas that were probably 6 to 8 inches deep.
Man.
But yeah.
I went through a phase where I kept leaving my I have like an RO system that has a tank that fills up and I can put a 5 gallon bucket underneath that tank and there's just like a little water spigot I turn on like straight off. Like it's literally one for a cooler. Like to dispense water. And it's slow enough to fill that 5 gallon bucket that I would start filling the bucket and then promptly forget about it. But worst case scenario, mine only does 40 gallons.
Mm-hmm.
You're this is a complete order of magnitude different.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I still need to come up with a solution because um, I've had a couple minor spills where I've overfilled the tank. Um, and where I'll turn it on and I'll be at the shop, thankfully. And then I'll walk around the corner. I'm like, oh, that's still running. And then I go and shut it off. And, I'll spill 5 gallons at most on the floor, usually before I catch it. But I need to have a better system because, like, if you're trying to fill it and you're just in mode where you're running 3 machines, like, it's so easy to forget that it's running. It's insane. And so I just need a timer system on it that only allows it to dispense a certain amount. Um, Easy solution. I just need to, and that's one thing I honestly forgot to look at IMTS was some kind of a system that would just have a solenoid and a timer that can just run and then automatically shut off. I probably just need to, I got so many Arduinos and stuff laying around. I just need to come up with something real quick and throw it together. Probably have enough scrap stuff laying around. The only thing I need to buy is a solenoid.
So I am planning on doing a YouTube video series here at some point that's like starting a product business from scratch. Kind of like if I was to restart Design the Everything, what I would do.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been trying to find a product to make, like the very first entry level one that could be mostly 3D printed.
Mm-hmm.
And this might be the answer right there. Is buy some off the shelf like solenoids and valves and timers and stuff
Mm-hmm.
and 3D print like a nice enclosure for it. And bam, that's my first product.
Yeah. Yeah. It'd be an easy product to do. I'm sure something like this exists. But I haven't really looked around too much for it.
I bet there's a lot of them that are very industrial. They can do like fairly high flow rates and, are bulletproof.
Mm-hmm. I just need
And then
something
there's
that connects
probably
to a
also
garden
some
hose.
for like gardeners and nothing in between.
Yep, I'm sure that's what it is. Because I need something, and what'd be really cool is I was thinking about it is, um, if I were to design it as a product, because I did think about this as well. after running into this problem. If I did it as an Arduino, I'd want to have it where you can do it by time or by volume. And if you did it by volume, I'd have a calibrate function where you have a 5 gallon bucket,
Yeah,
and then you just say start. It would open up the valve, and then it would flow. And then as soon as you got to 5 gallons, you'd hit the button to stop it, and then it would go, okay, that's how much time it takes to do this mount. So you can either do it by time or by amount from that point on.
that makes sense.
So,
Wouldn't be that hard to program into an Arduino either.
mm-mm. So that's kind of that'd be kind of cool to do. So, um, but yeah, seems like there's a lot of crazy stuff going on in my world these days, and I'm also teaching a class in the evenings now, still, and so that started back up
For now.
for now. And this is I have told them that this is my last semester. So,
Yeah.
um, and one of the teachers is taking the class, and he's trying to learn it because he wants to know how to use the machine, and because he'd probably be the one that would teach it after I'm done. And he's been telling me, he's like, please don't quit. He's like, I was like, oh, you'll get it. And
We
he's
need
like,
this
no,
knowledge.
please don't quit. So, and that's the hardest problem I have with teaching that class is I only have them for about an hour and a half a class period, and I basically teach for 2 hours because I always don't look at the clock, and then it's 30 minutes past when I'm supposed to let them out. But because it's the last class of the day, um they're just waiting on me to like finish, and I'm like, I'm sorry guys, I keep keeping you way too long, trying to cram
Yep.
as much as I can in. It's such a dense topic, especially because I'm teaching them about what a CNC machine is, how it works, how to cam, um, and then a lot of times I'm also teaching them like how to do CAD as well, because most of these students haven't touched a CAD CAM package of any
Mm.
kind, like CAD or CAM, and so it's like, this is how you use Fusion. This is where this button is. Like, there's just so much to go over in such a short amount of time.
Yeah, not having a background in CAD is rough. I
Mm,
so like whenever someone asks me how to get started, like the first thing I always say is buy a 3D printer and just start solving your own problems by modeling them in Fusion. Like don't just download stuff and print them, but use your printer as a tool to make stuff to solve your problems. And like that is the first and I would say the foundational learning step before you can move on to machining.
mm-hmm.
Like that is a prereq in my book.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And you can tell a massive difference in the students that have a 3D printer and have played around with them and have made stuff for it versus the ones that haven't, that have zero knowledge coming in. There is
Yep.
a massive gap in their skills in what they're able to accomplish in that class.
I mentioned this in that really really long Tormach video I did when I was talking to Rogi, the CEO of Tormach.
Mm-hmm.
Is there is a good path from no knowledge to machining? Like basically, you start with Fusion and 3D printing, and then you can get a small desktop machine, and then you can go to a Tormach, and then you can go to a big boy machine. Like there's no steps there that are like a major leap. But with the automation stuff, like at best there's like Arduino and like some basic electronics tinkering, and then
Mm-hmm.
you step to an industrial robot arm, and there's not really much in between, that at least not that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
And I think that is one of the problems with automation right now, and like why more shops aren't getting into it is there's no easy cheap way to build up that domain knowledge.
Yeah. And that's the one thing with IMTS. I think I walked away more confused on the automation front than answers. And a lot of people have a lot of opinions about what we need to do, and I appreciate those opinions greatly, but there is I'm not sure which direction to go still. Just because I can weigh the pros and cons, and at the end of the day, I'm going to be sacrificing something no matter which way I go.
Clearly, the right answer is you buy 10 Tormach 440s, put them in a giant ring with one robot that moves the part between them.
There you go.
10 spindles are faster than one big spindle.
I would say that until
And if you have 10 different 10 different mills, you don't need a tool changer on all of them.
yeah. No, just no. This is the worst. Don't anyone do this. If I find out any of our
This has been a
Patreon listeners
long-standing joke in the
takes this
Insta
idea
Machines.
and runs with it, I will pop them in the mouth.
I I have a shoreline in my shop for the first time in 5 years or something.
Yeah, okay, that's okay. Like, there's a difference between like learning and growing, and then taking
It's
a
not. It's
non-industrial,
not mine.
yeah, taking a non-industrial robot and or not non a non-industrial machine and pumping parts through it like it's an industrial machine. I did that with the 1100 MX, and
There was a machine someone posted in the Insta Machinist Discord.
mhm.
It was a 8 spindle, 2 x-axis, 5-axis machine. It had
Oh
like
wow,
on the left hand side, it had a little teeny tiny table with 3 different spindles, and instead of a tool changer, they just added more spindles. And so
that's
like
wild.
they looked like router spindles, but the router spindle could go up and down independently, and the X could move independently. And then over on the right hand side, there were 5 spindles in a little baby 5-axis trunnion, and the spindles just popped up and down instead of tool changes.
That is wild.
It was wild. I think it was a dental machine or something like
Mhm.
it. But it was like, huh, that's different.
Yeah, and so not to like poo poo the Tormach any, because it got us where we are, but trying to run production on that machine, at least compare, like I said, the 1500 fixes a vast
Everything.
majority of those problems that I faced with the 1100. But trying to run production on that 1100 totally could do it, but took a lot of maintenance to keep it functioning in good efficiency.
Yes. I'm excited to see where Tormach's going with the rest of their machines now that they've kind of unlocked the like, oh, we can actually build these machines ourselves and they're way better.
Yeah,
I suspect I think Tormach is about to take a major step up.
yeah.
Like, I kind of wish I could invest in them because I can see where they're going to go from this 1500, and it's only to much better machines.
I'll be excited when I see the 1100 MX squared. Yeah, or the 770 MX squared. That would be an impressive feat to take all the stuff that they're doing with the 1500 and fit it into a 15 amp 110 breaker.
Well, I mean, they don't have to have the same horsepower and the same motors.
No, no, no,
Like,
no, no, no,
they
no,
just
not the
need
same.
epoxy granite frame, linear rails, good way covers. I mean, that's 90% of the battle right there. Maybe no more TTS holders.
Yeah, they would need that. They would need wireless probing. Um,
Wireless probing.
I could see through spindle coolant, but it'd have to be on a separate
Eh.
breaker.
I don't think it matters on a machine smaller than the 1500, realistically.
Yeah, probably not. But a
Because
chip
that'll like
conveyor would
double
be
the price
nice.
of a 440.
Well, maybe not even a chip conveyor at that point either.
A easier to clean out enclosure and tray would be nice. A
Yeah,
washdown hose, coolant
yeah,
washdown hose.
or that washdown system where that everything comes
Yeah,
down. Like I could
that
see
would
that.
be a big improvement.
Yeah, but yeah, you're right. Through spindle probably wouldn't need. I do like the design that they have where everything goes and flows out the back though of that 1500 versus like if they brought that structure to the 700 or the 770, um, that would be really nice for that.
I would also really like to see a 220 or a 330.
Yeah,
I
I'd
will.
like to see a
I would.
side mount tool changer
That would be cool.
because Sile came out with a side mount that like bolts into the machine inside the enclosure and replaces their umbrella.
Sile really missed out not coming to IMTS.
Well, they had the Titan crew there, so maybe Titan
But Titan advertised every machine but the Siles.
that's true.
Like, I feel like Sile was kind of on an upward trajectory and like they were gaining momentum. And to miss IMTS is wild. Like, I did a video that was every entry level machine at IMTS, and we found some really cool things there that are going to get a lot of traction. I'm pretty sure I've sold some smart mini mills because of that video.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh, like I said at the end, like, sorry, Sile wasn't there, but you can Google him. Like, I think it's just a dumb choice on their part. I don't know. You done messed up, Sile. You had a big chance to kind of take off more.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. I didn't even think about them till just
Nobody
now.
did because they weren't there.
Mm-hmm. Although I did get to go see their machines in person when we went to the Titan event.
Yeah.
So, and their drill tap machine that's like got the same head as like the Speedios and the Robo drills,
Mm-hmm.
like their number 5. That thing is tiny. It is
Yeah,
so
the
small.
X5 is
Yeah, the
tiny.
X5. Yeah, that
That's
thing
like
is
the whole point of it.
it is insanely small. Like you could fit like 30 of them in like a really small space.
So
But
you have a ring of X5s and a robot.
that one I would be okay with, I think. That one I would be far more okay with just because I feel like um, it could run production significantly better. Um,
Taking a step back to the Shoreline that's in my shop for a second. So that is Scott's from Design the Everything, Patreon member
mm-hmm,
and friend. Um, and it's been like it's been fun playing with the Shoreline again and trying to
mm-hmm,
get up and running. The one he has is in really, really good shape, but it needs a controller. So we're like going through the process of building a controller. We had to replace the stepper motors, but the stepper motor shaft was a different size. So I taught Scott how to run my mill to um, bore out the shaft couplers to the correct size for
mm-hmm,
the new motors. So that's been fun. It's like at some point you lose the perspective of a absolute complete beginner. And Scott has
mm-hmm,
an advantage because he knows CAD. He's good at CAD and he's done a lot of 3D printing and he's seen me machine things and like he kind of knows the vocabulary, but has
mm-hmm.
never actually done it himself, which is why he's got this mill. Um, and so it's I don't know, it's kind of fun going back to that level
Oh
again.
yeah, I could definitely see as we continue to grow, and if I get to the point where I actually have excess cash, getting like a small machine and sticking it in my garage just for fun.
Yeah.
Just because like I don't have it close by. I do have those machines that I can go use, but I've never I haven't run a personal project on any CNC machine that I own since probably like the first few months of owning the Tormach.
I'm trying to remember the last personal project I did. Last Christmas I made some bottle openers. And the the espresso machine part for next gen, that felt kind of like a personal project because like it was my idea. I got to design it and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but also there was still most certainly a time crunch on that. That's true. I haven't done many personal projects lately.
And so I think like having a 5-axis, I for sure haven't done anything personal project ways on a 5-axis yet. And so like I've just been nonstop go go go. Well, I'll rephrase that. The first half of the year was really slow, but I had with the new shop and building out like honestly being slow at the beginning of this year probably worked out in my favor for getting everything set up in our shop.
Mm-hmm.
And so like it wasn't a complete waste of time. It was being slow. We used that time efficiently to build out the shop into what it is right now. So, but I still haven't had any time to do anything like personal in a long time on any of that stuff. So, I'd like to do that at some point, something. So, got anything else?
I was trying to think. We have two call to actions. I don't remember what they are. We did Patreon. Oh, yeah. By the way, we are both a podcast and a YouTube channel. If you're listening to the podcast, you can go like see Harrison and I in not in person, but you can watch what we look like when we say dumb things on a podcast.
That
Or if you are already watching the video and you don't want to watch us, then you can just listen to us on your podcast player of choice.
shout out to the random guy at the airport on my flight home, because I was going through security and I had this guy come up to me, or not come up to me. We were standing next to each other in line, and he goes, "Hey, did you enjoy the show?" And I was like, "Oh, maybe I'm wearing something that makes him think IMTS." I was like, "Oh yeah, I enjoyed it." And then he asked me something like, "So you and your cousin, like, how's the shop going?" And all. And he just starts asking me all these questions, and I'm just like, and he's like, "Oh, I listened to the podcast," and I was just like, "Oh." Okay. Like I was like, like, how'd you know all this stuff? And
That's funny.
I was like,
I've
oh,
never gotten that outside of IMTS. I don't
I've
think.
had that happen twice now. So, but it was like, so like people that watch the videos, when they see it and they come up to you, don't get me wrong, I love it. So like if you see me and you want to come up and say hi, go for it. But it just caught me off guard completely. So shout out to the random guy that I don't remember his name, but completely caught me off guard as I'm sitting there in my socks going through the security line. Oh, that was fun.
There was someone who I don't remember. I was like talking to somebody, like I was talking to a sales guy, and there was someone who clearly recognized me and like wanted to say something, but like I was already in a conversation with somebody else, and he like stood around for a couple minutes and then left. It's like, oh, I'm sorry. So to whoever that guy was at IMTS, I apologize for not getting a chance to talk to you. But I wanted to. I could see it in your eyes. Okay, I have one super super random side topic before we wrap up here.
Hmm.
Water and drinking it in your shop. I feel like I'm constantly not drinking enough water, and like I had some water bottles left over from IMTS and I drank all those while I was working in the shop, and those were fantastic. I've tried refilling water bottles before, but that like the overhead of that kind of became a pain. I've had like a Brita bottle. Our well water is super not great. It's very sulfury, and so like
Hmm.
I can't just drink it straight. What do people do? How do people drink water while working?
I have a water bottle that I just try to keep filled, but I will be honest, I do a horrible job, just like you, of actually um, keeping on it and making sure that I'm saying I have plenty of water drunk throughout the day. Drink it throughout the day.
I think I need like a water cooler or a big like some sort of permanently plumbed water filter,
Hmm.
because that would actually help me a lot throughout the day. Anyway, okay. How do I do this? There we go. Oh wait, we need to send this song off with one final goodbye.
They had coffee?
No, they had beer
I needed coffee on that trip.
and water bottles that were aluminum and made your hand really, really, really cold.
Yeah. It got hot in a couple, like running around.
It did. All right,
So,
outro us. Here, there we go.
um, all right, guys. Thanks for hanging out and listening to us ramble for the last hour and a half. It's been great, like getting to meet you guys, and I sincerely wish I had been able to spend a little bit more time with a lot of you guys, like, or with everyone that I met. Honestly, it just was so hard. And so, anyways, thanks. And we need to do another meetup like that before 2 years, and where we actually have time to be more social, because I would enjoy that. Anyways, Thanks for hanging out and listening to our stories and our journeys. And hopefully you can take away something from our ramblings to apply to your shop. Yeah, this has been Harrison with Precision Ingenuity, signing out with AJ from Audacity Micro, and we'll see you guys next time.
If you understood the 7 Eve reference, comment on the YouTube channel. Thank you. That is all.